Hudson Media Group Studios. This is Talking Politics, and I am the professor, Fernando Uribe. There's a lot to cover, so let's get started. This is what I'm thinking about right now. Now, folks, Hispanic home ownership is on the rise, and for Hispanics and Latinos alike, not only in Hudson County, but throughout New Jersey and even throughout the country, this is quite breath of fresh air for everyone to read and to certainly see, not only social media, but certainly on the mainstream sort of news publications. And a couple of figures I want to sort of share with you today, which really sort of add to the elation that we should be having, especially in the Hispanic community. Now, according to a Wall Street Journal report this week, Hispanic home ownership is experiencing the largest gains of any ethnic group in the U.S., which is indeed quite the turnaround for a population that was hardest hit by the housing crisis in 2008. And based on current estimates, this population specifically could help stimulate the market for years to come. Now, again, it's a fascinating article published this week in the Wall Street Journal, and to be honest with you, it really did catch my eye, and hopefully it will yours too. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the home ownership rate for Hispanics has increased more in the past several years than any racial or ethnic group, including whites. Now, this rate specifically, which hit a 50-year low in 2015, has risen almost 4% points since then, according to the U.S. Census Bureau data provided every 10 years. Now, the overall U.S. home ownership rate at least has bottomed out in the rate during the second quarter of 2016. But it did grow approximately 2 full percentage points since then. Now, for example, for blacks across the country, the home ownership rate has fallen to all-time low levels for them specifically in the last year. But again, as I mentioned, this marks the first time in more than almost 2 decades that both Hispanics and blacks, the two largest racial and ethnic demographics in the country, are indeed no longer following the same path when it comes to owning homes. Now, here's some sort of statistical data I think that should sort of put everything in perspective for you. Now, again, while Hispanics make up 18% of the U.S. population, the group specifically is accounting for nearly 63% of all new U.S. home ownership gains over the past decade. Now, again, these numbers are provided by the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. Now, new homeowners include people buying first homes or even those coming back into the market after an eventual foreclosure. Now, the group's home ownership has risen alongside gains in both income and education, alongside a growing familiarity within the U.S. mortgage market. Now, listen, this is great news, ladies and gentlemen, for the Hispanic community. And yes, it's a great time for our community, specifically when it comes to our economy. And it's time that we acknowledge it. And it's time that also at the same time, we're no longer susceptible to sort of like the lies that we've been hearing from the liberal mainstream media when it comes to the economy. Now, here, let me put some things in perspective. First, I'm not an economist, but I think you don't need to be one to sort of understand economic trends as you read them, whether you read them in academic publications or any sort of economic publications such as the Wall Street Journal. Now, yes, we did see some moderate economic growth from the periods of 2009 to 2016. Now, obviously, with the new presidency coming up in 2017 under President Donald Trump, what we've seen now is a market growth not only in the stock market, in the Dow Jones, we've also seen more small business creation, and we've seen overall better job growth. Now, one of the things that's interesting, I think, and for the most part with Hispanics, is this sort of idea that for whatever reason, at least electorally speaking, that Hispanics have always been sort of, under sort of the spell or sort of under some sort of hypnosis when it comes to the Democratic Party and economic policies. Folks, what we've seen for the last 2.5 years, and listen, I get it, that depending on where you sit within the ideological spectrum, that you might want to give credit to the previous presidency. But the idea, folks, is that at least almost 3 full years into a new term, at some point you either have to acknowledge the new administration or at least get off the old talking points. And what we've seen, folks, consistently in the last 2.5 years. Now, again, when we're talking about for most of 2017, we're sort of including a lot of fiscal year 2016 under the Obama administration. But moving on towards the end of 2017 up until now in July of 2019, we've seen incredible economic growth. We've seen, again, rise in the stock market. We've seen the Dow Jones at all-time highs. And the most important thing, and this is what's really contributing to home ownership among Hispanics, is we've seen the lowest unemployment rate for Hispanics in recent memory. That should be, again, a welcome sight for all of us, especially in the Hispanic and Latino communities alike, when it comes to at least acknowledging that the economy is indeed working for us, that the economy is indeed benefiting us, And how do we see it? We're having more disposable income. We're able to create more small businesses. We're able to even look for employment. Folks, this is something that maybe a lot of people don't want to sort of acknowledge, but at least I know personally, whether it's in Hudson County or even statewide, the economy indeed has been better. It's been better for women, it's been better for African Americans, and it's specifically been better for Hispanics, because all three demographics I just listed right now have experienced record unemployment rates. And this is something we haven't seen in almost, well, half a century. Yes, I'll say it again, in almost half a century. So when we're looking at some numbers here, this is one of the things I would argue that is probably turning off a lot of Hispanics in today's political climate. Now, if you don't want to believe me, that's fine, but let's call it what it is right now. And it's sort of this lie that's been perpetuated, not so much by the Democratic Party, but mostly by liberals, whether it be in academia, whether it be in the mainstream media, or even on social media. Okay? What many Hispanics like myself and others, and I can tell you because I speak to them, and you can see it in Pew polls and other public opinion polls all throughout the country, is what we're seeing in today's political climate is not so much an emphasis on how great the economy is, but on some of these frivolous and, quite frankly, nonsensical type of talking points, whether it's fake outrage, social engineering, identity politics, or this sort of fixation on constant victimhood. It's turning Hispanics off, and it's turning them off in big numbers. How do I know? Folks, put it in perspective right here. I looked at a recent public opinion poll, and despite some of the rhetoric that the president has said, which has been inflammatory at times, which at times has been lacking decorum and civility, the approval rating among Hispanics nationally for the president is still almost at 35%. Now that's high even for a Republican president, and we haven't seen that in quite some time, even since the early 80s under President Ronald Reagan. So clearly what we're seeing within the Hispanic community is indeed at least faith in the economy, and that again has gone back into how confident they are in buying their homes. Now here's some numbers again I want to sort of put out here for you. Now again, the Latin community specifically has also had a large millennial population entering the age of homeownership, right? Now again, as we all know, minorities bore the brunt of the 2008 housing crisis and the bubble that burst eventually. But the return to the homeownership has been mixed. But quite frankly, it's been positive overall. Now, for example, a growing population of young Latinos and Hispanics are increasingly eager to buy homes. And this offers a fresh hope to sort of a slow housing market, which we have been seeing in recent years, where the sale of existing homes had fallen off on an annual basis within the last half decade. What we've also seen, folks, which I think is very, very sort of illuminating and encouraging, is the idea that local and national leaders have courted a specific Hispanic clientele. Now again, they represent sort of an appealing growth market as overall loan volume has slowed, but more specifically, even within the banking industry, lenders have learned that adding Spanish-speaking loan officers and devoting additional resources to underwritten loans to borrowers who are self-employed, or even, let's say, where multiple generations in a family are indeed buying a home together. Folks, this is something that, especially as a Latino and a Hispanic, this is something that is extremely uplifting for me. I see it as a first-generation American. I saw it with my parents, both immigrants coming here well over 50 years ago, under different circumstances, but they had the same goal, to seek the American dream, to buy a home, to be a homeowner, to maybe possibly buy multiple homes or other properties. That has been something the Hispanic community has been really, I think, focused on for quite some time. And now that we're seeing a rise in homeownership, especially among the Hispanic and Latino communities alike, this has to sort of make you smile. I mean, how can it not? But at the same time, folks, it's a reminder how well the economy is working, not just for Hispanics, but for everybody. Don't let the liberal media, don't let academics, don't let political pundits or even politicians tell you differently. The economy is working. I understand it may not be working for every single person, but overall, we're seeing, taxes down. We're seeing, again, more small business creation. We're seeing more job growth across different sectors in the country. Now, we might not see it here in New Jersey because we're overtaxed. And of course, the legislature and Governor Murphy alike have never met a tax that they've never liked. So that goes without saying. But on a national level, let's look at more at a macro level than a micro. People are doing better, and specifically Hispanics, who right now are enjoying that sort of like delight of owning a home for the very first time, or even pursuing more property. It's something to smile about, folks. So again, kudos to the Wall Street Journal this week for a very insightful article, but more so, it sort of lends a better focus about what Hispanics are dealing with each and every year. Not only with a growing economy, an economy that's working for them, but the idea that they're getting enough money to buy their homes. Quite frankly, that's something that wasn't happening in recent years. So, as I've said before, you can dislike the president, you can say he lacks decorum, which he does, you can say he lacks civility, which he does, you can say that he often lacks that sort of presidential tone that his predecessor have, which he does. But folks, make no mistake about it, in today's political climate, a lot of people think with their pockets, and especially in the Hispanic community, that's what they're doing, and that's why they're buying more homes. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. During this week's edition of Talking the Hudson on Blog Talk Radio, I was delighted to welcome Guinness World Record holder, an environmental activist, and accredited filmmaker RJ Harper to the program. Now, for well over an hour, we talked about fundamental environmental issues and certainly what's going on locally in Jersey City. But first and foremost, I had to congratulate him for participating in the largest underwater cleanup according to the Guinness Book of World Records. And it took place in June of this year down in South Florida. And quite frankly, folks, when you hear about his story, it has to sort of motivate you to do everything you can to clean our oceans, to sort of preserve our environment. And you know what? When you listen to RJ Harper talk about how dedicated he is to preserving the planet and protecting our oceans, listen, it has to warm your heart. It certainly did mine. Let's hear what he had to say.
Because I'm so impressed, RJ, quite frankly, again, with, and if you could really share with us tonight, because I'm sure it's a process, obviously, recently in June, being part of the largest underwater cleanup, and Guinness recognizing that. I mean, that in itself, sounds laborious. I know you're in good shape, man. I'm seeing you online. You're in good shape. Obviously, you have to be to do this stuff. But quite frankly, tell us as much as you can tonight, really about what went into this project with this underwater, underwater cleaning, and as well as how you got on the Guinness radar.
So thanks a lot, man. I'm super excited to talk about this. As I've talked to many of my friends about organizing this Guinness Book of World Record dive, I couldn't have been more enthusiastic about the message that we were trying to send by having divers come from around the world to get together to clean up the ocean as a group of divers committed to wanting to bring attention to the emergency that our oceans are now experiencing. And for me, as one of the team leaders for the dive, convincing divers to come down from, different parts of America and from around the world. We had some people that flew in from Australia for that dive.
Wow.
Right? That's amazing, and we weren't completely sure in the lead up to this, as you can imagine, that we would get the numbers of divers to actually show up. The world record previously had been 614, and we had 633. And I was diver number 633. I was the last guy in the water, that day. And I did that mainly because we wanted to shoot the video of the ocean floor after all of the cleanup had happened. And I'm telling you, Fernando, it's like the most beautiful video you'll ever see. At least I think so, well, because I shot it, But it's an incredible just journey of, just seeing what you can do when people put their heads together, and just recognize the problem and want to bring awareness to it. So we had a great group of sponsors, Dixie Divers. I met some amazing divers from around, famous divers, who flew in because they wanted to just, send a message that, this dive, although it's not, the deepest dive in the world or anything like that, it's about the cleanup and how important it is for all of these, scuba environmentalists to be able to use their social media, their power and media to raise awareness, that our oceans are really experiencing an emergency. And it's a wake-up call to the planet, quite frankly, and that's why we wanted people internationally because, humans only understand 5% of this ocean. And we have done so much devastation to so much of the ocean life and plant life on this planet that we really are experiencing an emergency, particularly in our oceans. And the cleanup was really a way for us to make sure that the next generation of people understand that, during one moment in time before, this ocean problem may become irreversible. That these scuba divers sounded the emergency alarm, by trying to do this. And, quite frankly, Fernando, we hope somebody beats our record soon, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, that's what we're shooting for, right? I mean, I only hope to hold this record for, several months, right? We're looking for someone to beat us, and that's the idea of challenging the rest of the dive community, people who are really interested in cleaning up our oceans to knock us out of the box. We saw the record in Egypt. We're like, we're from America, man. We can break this record. So I applaud all the divers, Dixie Divers, Patty, who was the worldwide authority on certifying scuba divers, For Ocean, SOS, all these different organizations, that were very instrumental in making it possible for the divers to get together, 600 divers to, break this record.
Again, a big congratulations to RJ Harper on that tremendous accomplishment. And seeing it now there in print with the Guinness Book of World Records has to be something that, quite frankly, should motivate us all to be more involved in the environment. So, again, cheers to RJ Harper for that wonderful accomplishment. Also, throughout the episode, we also talked about, at a local level in Jersey City, how the Environmental Protection Agency indeed provided a grant in the amount of $800,000 for a study for certain parts of Jersey City that are still not safe for residents. He talked about that grant, quite honestly, how it should sort of include more money from the federal government, and ultimately what this grant and this specific study will accomplish in Jersey City as he's hoping to eliminate as many toxins from the environment, to protect our seniors, to protect our kids, to protect our residents in Jersey City, and quite honestly, something to really admire. Let's see what he had to say about it.
For years about, contamination in Jersey City. If the EPA is coming to Jersey City to give a grant for $800,000 signed off by Mayor Fulop, right? Great, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. Where are we starting the testing? Because actually, as a community group, we know exactly where to start testing at Berry Lane Park. And the EPA says, okay, you want to, yeah.
Well, no, I'm sorry to cut you off, RJ. What I'm concerned about, and I'm glad to see that grant's been bestowed. My concern is, like anything, man. I'm skeptical of all government, all right? And
right.
My concern,
we are too, right?
And my concern is, are you feeling or hearing any brushback from the Fulop administration and City Hall on Grove Street about what's to be tested? What do they prefer not to be examined? Have you seen or read or heard about any resistance from Mayor Fulop and the administration about, well, we prefer you not go here in Jersey City. We prefer you go there. Have you heard any of that?
Okay. Well, let me tell you this. So it's actually interesting because, the EPA is calling us back now, right, about the grant, because one of the things is that, did the city of Jersey City actually provide the EPA with all of the information about all of the toxic stuff before they even got the grant? We'd like to see what the grant proposal looked like that they funded, because our view is, and this is for the pedestrian parkway, there's a pedestrian parkway coming through Ward F, right? That means that the EPA is going to come here. Well, that's going to go right near Berry Lane Park, which means you're going to have to start testing something, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what proposal would the city have given to the EPA that would allow them to only need $800,000 to do the pedestrian parkway potentially, right?
Yes.
You really need more like $20 million if you're actually going to do testing and cleanup for do the pedestrian parkway for the areas that they want to go to. So if you're starting with $800,000, where's the other $18 million for the cleanup? Anyway, so that's what we're asking the EPA, right? Yeah, right. Follow it. Look into this. You're a journalist, right? Sounds great.
Yes.
When the EPA came, there was no press conference. We're like, why wasn't there a press conference, right? They had the meeting in like 5 minutes in the park, and they were gone. And we're like, that seems odd. Like, if the EPA is here to drop off a check for $800,000 in Jersey City, why wasn't there abundant fanfare? Why haven't you heard about it?
That's disappointing.
Anybody?
That's disappointing. That's disappointing. And right. That's disappointing.
So
absolutely.
Look into it, right? Okay, because if the EPA is dropping off a check for $800,000 in Jersey City, where's the parade? And what is it? And what is $800,000? That's great. Like I even want to get on. I'm happy about that, right? Because it's for testing. So why wasn't there a lot of fanfare about the EPA's interest in testing in Ward F in Jersey City?
Have you talked to Mayor Fulop though, RJ, about whether or not
Well,
this
residents have to go. Residents have to go to the JCRA. So anyway, like I said, I'll be back on the show. I'll give you the update. Right?
Absolutely,
it's a very important,
absolutely.
pressing issue right now that's going on. Like I said, one person needs to stand up. In our case, it's more than one person. It's environmental groups in Jersey City. We have a valid question, right, about the EPA's $800,000 grant to do testing in Jersey City. We love it. When I come back on the show, we'll talk about what did the test prove, right, and have all of the have all of the commentary that we've been making about some of the areas in Berryland Park, pass the real EPA test with EPA standards of testing. And I hope they prove me wrong.
It was quite an interesting episode, to say the very least, and you can listen to it in its entirety by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking to Hudson. You can do so from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet, and you can listen to it anywhere and anytime. Trust me, you'll definitely want to take a listen. And now to some local stories, and one in the Mile Square City that certainly garnered a lot of attention this week among residents and also among the city council. Now again, folks, in an email released last week, 5th Ward Councilman Peter Cunningham announced he will not seek re-election this November. Now, for those of you that are not aware, Peter Cunningham has served on the city council in Hoboken for the last 12 years. He wanted to say in an email to residents, 12 years is a good enough time to serve on the city council, and I'm more than proud of all of my accomplishments. I can say from my perspective that I've made the city proud of who I was, who it is today, what I've been doing, and quite frankly, what Hoboken will be in the future. With that being said, and after careful thought with my family and friends, I've decided not to run for re-election this year. Now, the councilman said that he entrusts his legacy to Councilwoman Jen Giattino and Tiffany Fisher. Now, so far, only Phil Cohen, who is running on Mayor Ravi Balla's slate, has announced he will seek election in the 5th Ward election this November. Folks, I can tell you right now, at least from what I've heard from Hoboken residents, the luckiest man in the Mile Square City has to be Phil Cohen. This is a guy that has run for public office before, and quite honestly, has never gotten it done. And to now at least be running unopposed when, let's be honest, everybody knew he was going to lose to Peter Cunningham, has to be, again, a welcome sight for Ravi Balla, who's looking to get at least another ally on the city council. Now, nothing against Phil Cohen. I've met the guy personally at sort of, fundraisers and campaign events in recent years. So nothing against the guy, but let's be honest, at least word on the street was he wasn't going to win this election. And again, it was just simply Mayor Balla putting someone in that 5th Ward to compete against Peter Cunningham. That clearly is not going to be the case now this November, as from what I can tell, Phil Cohen is going to be running unopposed. Now, if someone decides to step up and run against Phil Cohen, that remains to be seen. But certainly, folks, talk about, and it's the classic line in politics. Sometimes you have to be at the right place at the right time. And you know what? And that applies whether it's in local, state, or national elections. And right now in Hoboken, that line fits perfectly for Phil Cohen. The guy couldn't get any luckier right now with the fact that he'll be running unopposed and most likely will be winning the 5th Ward Council seat coming up this November in the Mile Square City. Now, also, folks, staying in the Mile Square City, a story that I've talked about on previous episodes here on Talking Politics, I think sort of an update and a shout out to fellow journalist John Hines with the Hudson County View, good work that he does every week. He did report this week that after the voter by mail fraud conviction last month in U.S. federal court in Newark, Hoboken operative Frank Rea is indeed filing a motion to seek a new trial. Now again, after being convicted of a voter by mail fraud crime in connection to a 2013 municipal election in Hoboken, Hoboken operative Frank Rea is seeking a new trial according to documents filed in U.S. District Court this week. Now, quote, the relief is sought and it's warranted because 1, the jury's guilty verdict was against the weight of the evidence, and 2, the ruling of the court at trial, which was adverse to the defendant, compromised the right of the defendants to due process and the right to a fair trial, according to Alan Zagas, Frank Rea's defense attorney, in a motion that he wrote on July the 9th. And again, one of the things that's really interesting about this is the idea that, again, Frank Rea was convicted of voter by mail fraud related crimes as it pertains to the 2013 municipal election when he was running for a councilman at large seat and also supporting a ballot question to loosen the city's rent control laws back on June 25th, again, as reported back on the Hudson County View. Now, the jury verdict came inside U.S. District Judge William J. Martini's courtroom after only 4 days of deliberation, and quite frankly, many were surprised it took that short amount of time for the jury to come back with a guilty verdict. Now, again, in short, the government, whose case was presented by Assistant U.S. Attorneys Rahul Agarwal and Sean Farrell, provided a very compelling case. Now, again, folks, if you watched the program before, you know how sacred I look at voting. You know how sacred I look at elections. And quite frankly, what Frank Rea and his operatives did, I think, was despicable. It takes away the integrity of what we believe are fair and just elections, whether it's at the local level, state level, or the national level. Folks, this idea that voter fraud doesn't exist and it's sort of being demonized, oh, it's a conservative right-wing talking point. No, folks, it's not hysteria, it's not hyperbole, it's real. And it's real in our own backyard. Look no further than down the road in Hoboken, folks, where Frank Rea and his little minions did quite a disservice to our democracy. Elections need to be fair, they need to be honest, they need to be credible. We need to get back to that, especially in the Mile Square City. Now, again, I'm all for due process and someone receiving a fair trial. I think Frank Rea and his cronies received that. They should get their just punishments. And what I urge Judge Martini and the U.S. attorneys in this case to do, issue the severest penalty possible. They deserve it, folks. And I'm not being punitive, and I'm not being sort of, lacking compassion here. But the idea that these people in such a cavalier way think that they can sort of just hijack elections and hijack the integrity of a local election, I think says a lot about their lack of character, their lack of morality, and their lack of credibility. I'm hoping that the judge and the U.S. attorneys in this case seek the highest possible penalty for them, because they deserve it. Whether it's in Hoboken, whether it's in any other municipality in New Jersey, or even nationally, elections need to be fair. Elections need to be credible. Elections need to be honest. We didn't see that in Hoboken. And I'm hoping in future elections, even coming up this November for city council seats, that they remain fair and that they remain honest. It's one person and one vote. That's the way it should be. Not just today, but tomorrow and for the foreseeable future. I'm hoping this gets resolved, and hopefully when these individuals do get sentenced, and I'm hoping that their motion does get denied, that they get their justice. Because they denied people the process, which a lot of people, quite frankly, like myself, take very seriously. I hope they get the most severe penalty possible, folks. I can't say it enough. It's not because of a personal dislike for all of them, but it's because I believe that the process needs to be fair. They need to be made an example of. And I'm hoping that in U.S. federal court, that Frank Rea and his little sort of despicable little entourage get what they deserve. Folks, that's the episode for this week here. For more of the excellent programming provided by the Hudson Media Group, you can always check them out online at www.hmgtvshows.com and also www.livestream.com/HMGTV. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and also follow them on Instagram and Twitter. And don't forget that every Wednesday night live on Blog Talk Radio, you can listen to the 3-time award-winning Talking the Hudson by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. Again, you can listen to it from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet anywhere at any time. Don't forget to like the show on Facebook and also follow it on Instagram. You can also follow me on Twitter as well. If we're talking politics, we're doing it right here with the Hudson Media Group. I'm Fernando Uribe. Thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.